Hello everyone. This is Dr. Mike. Before we start today's video, I need to make a serious alert. What you ate for breakfast today might be silently raising your blood sugar to dangerous levels. And you have no idea. Every 5 seconds, a person in the world develops diabetes. Every 10 seconds, someone dies due to complications related to this silent disease. And the scariest part? More than 50% of people with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes don't know they're sick. Today, I'm going to reveal something the food industry doesn't want you to know. 9 common foods that you're probably consuming every day that are spiking your glucose levels, potentially leading you directly to type 2 diabetes. You might be thinking, Dr. Mike, but I don't eat sweets. Unfortunately, it's not just the obvious sweets that cause this problem. The danger is hidden in foods that you consider healthy and consume daily. Let's dive into this investigation together. And I promise that by the end of this video, you'll have powerful tools to protect your health and the health of those you love. The diabetes problem today. Before revealing these 9 dangerous foods, I need you to understand why this is so important. We're facing a global diabetes epidemic. In my 20 years of medical practice, I've never seen anything like this. The numbers are alarming. More than 537 million adults living with diabetes worldwide. 1 in 3 Americans has prediabetes, the anteroom to the disease. The risk increases dramatically after age 45, but we're seeing increasingly younger cases. Type 2 diabetes, which used to be called adult diabetes, now affects even children. Let me tell you something that happened in my office last week. A 52-year-old patient, let's call her Maria, came to see me for a routine checkup. She exercised regularly, maintained a healthy weight, and believed she had a balanced diet. When the test results came in, I was forced to give her the news that left her in shock. She had advanced prediabetes, about to develop type 2 diabetes. "How is this possible, Dr. Mike?" she asked with tears in her eyes. "I don't even eat sugar." When we analyzed her diet together, we discovered the problem. Those healthy foods she consumed daily were full of hidden sugars and carbohydrates that quickly converted to glucose in the blood. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And believe me, what I'm going to share could literally save your life. The mechanism of diabetes. To understand why certain foods are so dangerous, we need to understand how diabetes develops. When we consume foods, especially carbohydrates, they are converted into glucose, the sugar that circulates in the bloodstream. In response, the pancreas releases insulin, the hormone responsible for transporting this glucose into cells, where it will be used as energy. The problem begins when we constantly overload this system with blood sugar spikes. Over time, our cells develop insulin resistance. They simply stop responding adequately. As a result, the pancreas produces more and more insulin until it eventually becomes exhausted. It's like ringing the doorbell of a noisy neighbor repeatedly. At first, he opens the door. After a while, he starts taking longer to answer. Eventually, he stops responding completely. This is exactly what happens in type 2 diabetes. First, insulin resistance develops, then the pancreas's inability to produce enough insulin, and finally, chronically elevated blood sugar levels, diabetes itself. And now, let's get to what really matters, the 9 foods that accelerate this dangerous process. The 9 foods that quickly trigger diabetes. 1. Sodas and sugary drinks. This is perhaps the most obvious culprit, but still frightening in its effects. A single 12-ounce soda contains about 39 grams of sugar, equivalent to 10 teaspoons. Studies published in the prestigious Journal of the American Medical Association show that people who consume 1 to 2 cans of soda per day have a 26% higher chance of developing type 2 diabetes. But it's not just sodas. Industrialized juices, energy drinks, and even those fitness or detox drinks can be loaded with sugar. Dr. Robert Lustig, an endocrinologist at the University of California, has demonstrated in his research that liquid sugar is particularly dangerous because it's absorbed very quickly, causing dramatic spikes in glucose and insulin. One of my patients, a 48-year-old teacher, managed to reverse her prediabetes simply by eliminating her innocent morning orange juice and the zero soda, which we'll talk about later, that she drank at lunch. 2. White breads, bagels, and refined pastas. But Dr. Mike, bread isn't sweet. This is a common observation I hear. The truth. For your body, that soft white bread transforms into sugar almost as quickly as candy. Refined carbohydrates have lost their fiber and nutrients during processing. As a result, they are digested very quickly, raising blood sugar almost as fast as pure sugar. A study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed more than 65,000 women for 14 years and found that those who regularly consumed white breads, pastas, and rice had a 40% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. White flour has a glycemic index as high as table sugar. This means that a portion of pasta or 2 rolls can raise your blood sugar as much as eating sweets. 3. Healthy breakfast cereals. This is perhaps the most treacherous food on our list. Breakfast cereals are marketed as healthy choices to start the day, especially those labeled as whole grain or high fiber. The sad reality. A Harvard University study analyzed more than 1,500 breakfast cereals and found that over 75% contained more sugar per serving than a cream-filled cookie. Many fitness or diet cereals contain between 12 and 20 grams of sugar per serving. And the worst part, who really limits themselves to the small serving indicated on the box? One of my patients, a 50-year-old executive with an apparently healthy lifestyle, couldn't understand why his sugar levels were consistently elevated every morning. The culprit? That generous bowl of whole grain with fruits cereal that he believed was his healthiest choice of the day. 4. Artificial sweeteners. But Dr. Mike, I've replaced all my sugar with zero-calorie sweeteners. Unfortunately, this strategy may be having the opposite effect than desired. Recent studies published in the prestigious journal Nature found that artificial sweeteners such as aspartame, sucralose, and saccharin drastically alter the gut microbiota, the bacteria that live in our intestines and are essential for our metabolic health. This alteration leads to an increase in insulin resistance and glucose intolerance, exactly the precursors to type 2 diabetes. In a particularly alarming study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, researchers found that people who regularly drank diet beverages had a 67% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to non-consumers. The reason? These sweeteners can trick your brain, making it anticipate calories that never arrive, disrupting the entire metabolic system. 5. Fat-free or low-fat foods. Here's an inconvenient truth. When the food industry removes fat from a product, they usually replace it with, you guessed it, sugar or refined carbohydrates. Fat-free yogurts, for example, can contain up to 29 grams of sugar per serving, almost as much as ice cream. A study published in The Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology analyzed more than 18 studies involving 76,000 participants and concluded that there is no evidence supporting the benefits of low-fat products in preventing metabolic diseases like diabetes. In fact, consumption of healthy fats, like olive oil, avocado, and nuts, is associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, while processed, fat-free foods often cause the opposite effect. 6. French fries and processed potatoes. Potatoes themselves have a high glycemic index, but when processed, fried, or turned into chips, they become real bombs for your blood sugar levels. A Harvard School of Public Health study followed more than 120,000 people for up to 20 years and found that regular consumption of French fries was among the foods most strongly associated with weight gain and increased risk of diabetes. French fries and chips combine high glycemic index carbohydrates with trans fats and large amounts of salt, a combination that not only triggers glucose levels but also promotes chronic inflammation, another risk factor for diabetes. A medium portion of French fries at a fast food chain causes a glucose spike comparable to consuming 8 teaspoons of sugar at once. 7. Industrialized sauces and condiments. Here's something few people realize. That innocent ketchup you add to your hamburger contains approximately 4 grams of sugar per tablespoon. Salad dressings, especially light ones, barbecue sauce, teriyaki, and even some pasta tomato sauces can contain enormous amounts of added sugar. A study conducted by the University of Toronto analyzed more than 130 commercial sauces and condiments and found that 88% contained added sugars as one of the first 3 ingredients. 1 tablespoon of barbecue sauce contains about 7 grams of sugar, almost 2 teaspoons. The problem? These condiments are rarely seen as significant sources of sugar, leading people to consume them freely without realizing the impact on their glucose levels. 8. Healthy smoothies and acai bowls. This may be surprising to many. Those green smoothies and acai bowls you see all over social media as symbols of health can be true sugar bombs. An average smoothie purchased at a juice store contains between 30 and 60 grams of sugar, comparable to or even higher than a soda. Acai bowls, popularized as superfoods, often come with granola, honey, agave syrup, and dried fruits, raising their sugar content to alarming levels. Dr. Frank Hu, from the Harvard School of Public Health, explains that drinking calories is particularly problematic for glucose metabolism because liquids pass quickly through the digestive system, causing dramatic spikes in blood sugar. One of my patients, a 32-year-old woman with a family history of diabetes, was beginning to show signs of insulin resistance. When we analyzed her diet, we discovered that her green and healthy morning smoothie contained 45 grams of sugar, more than a chocolate bar. 9. Protein bars and energy bars. Marketed as healthy options for snacks or post-workout meals, many protein and energy bars are essentially disguised candy bars. A University of Calgary study analyzed 30 popular protein bars and found that most contained between 15 and 30 grams of added sugar, often in the form of high-fructose corn syrup, honey, or brown rice syrup. The combination of proteins with simple sugars and preservatives creates a mixture that can quickly raise blood glucose levels, especially when consumed outside the context of intense physical activity. Dr. David Ludwig, a Harvard endocrinologist, explains that these bars often contain a type of processed carbohydrate that causes particularly pronounced insulin spikes, contributing to insulin resistance over time. The truth about hidden sugar. The big problem isn't just the sugar you consciously add to your food, but the hidden sugar in processed foods that you wouldn't imagine. The food industry uses more than 60 different names for sugar on food labels. Some examples: a high-fructose corn syrup, sucrose, a dextrose, a maltodextrin, evaporated cane juice, a coconut sugar, a brown rice syrup, a fruit juice concentrate. Sugar is hidden in about 74% of processed foods available in supermarkets. An average American consumes approximately 22 teaspoons of added sugar per day, almost 4 times the amount recommended by the World Health Organization. I know it can be discouraging to discover that so many foods you thought were healthy are actually contributing to diabetes risk. But there's good news. Knowledge is power, and now you're armed with information that can literally change the course of your health. If you're enjoying this life-saving information, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to receive more content like this. And tell me in the comments, which of these foods on the list surprised you the most? I'm very curious to know. How to protect your body from diabetes. Now that you know which foods to avoid, let's talk about how to actively protect your body from type 2 diabetes. 1. Choose complex carbohydrates. Unlike refined carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates are rich in fiber and slowly digested, causing more gradual and sustainable blood sugar elevations. Excellent options include a quinoa, a oatmeal, a sweet potato, a brown rice, a legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, a non-starchy vegetables. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that people who regularly consumed whole grains had a 30% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. 2. Prioritize lean proteins and healthy fats. Proteins and healthy fats have little impact on blood sugar levels and help keep us satiated for longer. Great sources include omega-3 rich fish, salmon, sardines, lean meats, skinless chicken, lean cuts of red meat, eggs, unsweetened fermented dairy products, extra virgin olive oil, avocado, nuts, walnuts, almonds, cashews. A 2019 study published in the British Medical Journal showed that diets rich in healthy fats and low in refined carbohydrates are particularly effective for improving insulin sensitivity. 3. Learn to read labels correctly. Here's a skill that can change your life: learning to decipher nutrition labels. When checking sugar content, remember, 4 grams of sugar equals 1 teaspoon. Check the ingredients list for different types of sugar. They often appear multiple times under different names. Be suspicious of foods that list any form of sugar among the first 3 to 5 ingredients. Observe the serving size. Many manufacturers make unrealistically small portions so that the sugar content appears lower. 4. Adopt intermittent fasting. One of the most promising strategies for improving insulin sensitivity is intermittent fasting, an eating pattern that alternates between periods of eating and fasting. A groundbreaking study published in Cell Metabolism found that just 10 hours of overnight fasting can significantly improve insulin sensitivity and reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. Popular methods include a 16:8 protocol, 16 hours fasting, 8-hour eating window. The 5:2 protocol, eat normally for 5 days, drastically reduce calories for 2 days. Alternate day fasting. Important: always consult a doctor before starting any fasting regimen, especially if you have pre-existing medical conditions. 5. Move regularly. Physical exercise is one of the most powerful tools for preventing and managing diabetes. When we exercise, our muscles can absorb glucose without needing insulin through a mechanism known as contraction-mediated glucose uptake. A Stanford University study found that just 150 minutes of moderate physical activity per week, 30 minutes, 5 times a week, can reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes by 58%. The best type of exercise? The one you'll actually do. Walking, swimming, dancing, gardening, yoga, all these activities bring significant benefits to your glucose metabolism. 6. Improve your sleep. This is often the most neglected factor in diabetes prevention. University of Chicago studies have demonstrated that just one night of poor sleep can reduce insulin sensitivity by 25% in healthy people. People who regularly sleep less than 6 hours a night have a significantly higher risk of developing insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, regardless of other lifestyle factors. Tips for improving sleep. Maintain a regular schedule for sleeping and waking. Avoid screens, phones, computers, TVs, at least 1 hour before bedtime. Keep your room cool, dark, and quiet. Limit caffeine and alcohol, especially in the afternoon and evening. 7. Manage stress. Chronic stress raises cortisol levels, which in turn increases blood glucose and contributes to insulin resistance. Effective stress management techniques include a mindfulness meditation, a deep breathing, yoga or tai chi, a nature walks, a relaxing hobbies. A study from the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine showed that just 10 minutes of daily meditation can significantly improve fasting glucose levels in patients with prediabetes. A transformation story. Before we conclude, I want to share the story of Carlos, a 58-year-old patient who came to see me 2 years ago with a recent diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. His blood sugar levels were dangerously high, and he was scared. His father had lost his vision and then a leg due to diabetes complications. Instead of simply prescribing medication, we worked together on a complete transformation of Carlos's lifestyle. He eliminated the 9 foods we discussed today and adopted the strategies I shared. The results? In 6 months, Carlos had lost 31 pounds, and his blood sugar levels had normalized to the point where his diabetes was in remission. Today, 2 years later, he no longer needs diabetes medication, has more energy than he had at 40, and recently completed his first half marathon. Carlos's story isn't exceptional. I've seen similar transformations in hundreds of patients who made the courageous decision to change their eating habits and lifestyle. You've made it this far, which means you care deeply about your health and the health of those you love. That's something worthy of admiration. Type 2 diabetes isn't inevitable. Even those with strong genetic predisposition can drastically reduce their risk through daily choices. Start small. Eliminate one of the 9 problematic foods per week. Observe how your body responds. Take one step at a time toward a diet based on real, unprocessed foods. If you're struggling with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes right now, know that there is hope. I've seen countless patients reversing this condition through the changes we discussed today. If this video was helpful to you, please like it and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Tell me in the comments which information surprised you the most today, or what change you plan to implement first in your life. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now to receive more content that can literally save lives. This is Dr. Mike, and my mission is to help you live a long, healthy, and vibrant life. Until the next video.